We're going to travel back 60 years to a single pivotal month in a truly transformational decade. You see, April 1966 offers a remarkable snapshot of a world in motion, a moment where the very foundations of culture, technology, and society were shifting. Within these 30 days, there was a fascinating convergence of past and future. Profound social debates were erupting, all while landmark achievements in entertainment and sport unfolded across North America. It all paints a very complex picture of a society in transition. You could say it was a time when the world seemed to be changing from black and white to full color, and not just on television screens, but in the very fabric of daily life. The swinging 60s were really hitting their stride, and these cultural shifts were becoming impossible to ignore. So we can begin by looking at the dramatic contrasts of the era. A farewell to a fictional past happened to coincide directly with humanity's determined reach for the stars, while society on the ground began asking some challenging new questions about its own beliefs. On April 1st, the month began with what you might call a cultural bookend. The popular animated series The Flintstones aired its finale. For millions of viewers, this really marked the symbolic end of a beloved, if prehistoric, television era. But then, just one day later, on April 2nd, the real-life future arrived. The Soviet Union's Luna 10 probe became the first man-made object to successfully orbit the moon. So while a fictional Stone Age was ending on television, the actual space age was taking a historic leap forward. A week after that, a different kind of frontier was being explored. On April 8th, Time magazine posed a provocative three-word question on its cover: "Is God dead?" This became one of the most controversial issues in the publication's history, and it ignited this widespread, intense debate about the role of faith in a modern scientific society. And these were just some of the month's significant changes. In between the lunar orbit and the theological debate, a more practical matter was settled on April 13th. President Lyndon Johnson signed the Uniform Time Act, which standardized daylight saving time and finally brought some order to a chaotic patchwork of local time zones all across the United States. The transformations of April 1966 were also vividly on display in the world of entertainment. This is where technological advances and social progress came together to create some truly unforgettable historical moments. On the evening of April 18th, the 38th Academy Awards marked a milestone in broadcasting history. For the very first time, audiences at home could watch the glamour and ceremony of the Oscars in full, living color. It was a viewing revolution, hosted by Bob Hope. And the top prize that evening went to a film that would become a generational touchstone. The Sound of Music was crowned Best Picture, cementing its status as one of the most beloved musicals of all time. On the very same night as that Color Oscars broadcast, history of a different kind was made in professional sports. The Boston Celtics named their star player, Bill Russell, as their new coach. This made him the first African-American to lead a team in the history of the NBA. Now, at the same time, let's turn our focus north. Canada, in April 1966, was experiencing its own distinct blend of national prosperity, political maneuvering, and an absolutely all-consuming passion for sport. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson kept the nation guessing. He was engaging in what the newspapers were calling a teasing game about whether he would call a fall election. And this political anticipation was playing out against a backdrop of a thriving economy, with a rising gross national product and ambitious preparations for the country's upcoming 1967 centennial. For many Canadians, though, the real drama was taking place on the ice. The NHL's semifinal playoff series pitted two legendary rivals, the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, against each other. And this was so much more than a simple hockey game. It was really considered the cultural heartbeat of the nation. The series proved to be a dominant performance by one of hockey's greatest dynasties. The Montreal Canadiens swept the Maple Leafs in 4 straight games, securing their place in the Stanley Cup Final against the Detroit Red Wings. And finally, no look back at this era is complete without listening to its soundtrack. The music of April 1966 was a vibrant mix of established icons and energetic new voices that were shaping the sound of the entire decade. The musical landscape was incredibly diverse. While the legendary Frank Sinatra was in the studio recording what would become the classic Strangers in the Night, a whole new generation was being captured by the raw energy of the Young Rascals and their #1 hit, Good Loving. Meanwhile, Canada's own national music scene was growing. The folk icon Gordon Lightfoot was finding success with his song Spin Spin, and out of Winnipeg, a promising young rock band called The Guess Who was just beginning to make its mark on the airwaves. So, from space exploration to social debate, from Hollywood history to hockey rivalries, April 1966 perfectly encapsulated its era. It was far more than just a collection of dates on a calendar. It was a living demonstration of a total transformation in how people lived, worked, and dreamed. This was brought to you by Stalls or Circle. Thank you for listening.